It was late August when I flew down to Tulum, Mexico to meet my girlfriend Emily. She had already been down there for a few days with her family, but they left early for a separate trip, and I decided to join her for a few nights at a resort she booked. It was supposed to be a simple getaway, cheap drinks, beach sunsets, and sleeping in. Honestly, I needed it more than I realized. The resort itself wasn't bad, a little dated maybe, but quiet and off the beaten path. The kind of place you book because reviews say authentic and private. The front desk clerk was polite, but spoke in clipped English, and the lobby was empty when I arrived. Eerily so. I chalked it up to off-season timing. We were assigned room 209, top floor, far end of the North Tower. There was no other guests on that floor, at least none we ever saw or heard. We joked about it. Emily said we scored the honeymoon suite by accident. I mean, she wasn't wrong. The room had a private balcony, a king bed, and a huge bathroom. Best of all, it was quiet. Almost too quiet. That first night we passed out early, after a few drinks. But around 2:30 in the morning, I got up for some water and noticed something weird. The deadbolt on the door was unlocked. I'm obsessive about locks. I remember double checking it before bed. I even joked to Emily that I locked doors like an old man. So seeing it undone stopped me cold. I stood there for a second, staring at the door like it had betrayed me. Then I relocked it and peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Just an empty hallway, lit by a flickering fluorescent light way down at the other end. I went back to bed and tried not to think about it. The next morning, Emily couldn't find her brush. It was a small, travel-sized one she always packed. We searched everywhere, bags, drawers, even behind the bathroom sink, but there was nothing. She let it go, but something about it bugged me. It wasn't valuable, it just vanished. That afternoon, after we got back from the beach, the weird feeling returned. The air in the room just felt different, like something had opened a window and closed it again. The bathroom door was wide open, even though we'd both remember shutting it. One of our beach towels had been tossed onto the ground beside the bed, not by us of course. I called the front desk to ask if housekeeping had come by while we were out. They said they hadn't. Our room wasn't scheduled for cleaning that day, and no one had been assigned to our floor. When I asked if someone could have accidentally entered the room, they were adamant no one else had a key. I asked to switch rooms. They said the hotel was full, even though it felt half abandoned. That night, I propped a chair under the door handle just in case. At around 3:45 a.m., I woke up again. No noise at first, just a weird sensation, like that pressure in the room had shifted again. Then I heard it, a soft click, then a metallic rattle. I sat up. The doorknob was turning slowly, like whoever's on the other side was trying not to wake us. The bolt held, the door didn't open. But the sound of the knob moving, that deliberate attempt to get inside, froze me. Emily stirred beside me. I whispered, "Don't move." We stayed completely still, barely breathing. The knob stopped turning, then faint footsteps. Not hurried, just retreating, calm, like they knew we were awake. I waited a few minutes, then crept to the people. No one was there. The hallway was empty. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I told the front desk what had happened. The same clerk from before gave me a stiff smile and said again that no staff had a reason to enter our room, and that security is very good here. I didn't believe him. We left that day. Back home, we tried to shake it off, but 2 weeks later, Emily got an alert from her credit card provider. Someone had tried to make a purchase using her backup card, the one she kept zipped in the inside pocket of her suitcase. She hadn't used it once on the trip. It was still in her bag when she checked. The card hadn't been stolen, but someone had gotten her numbers. Probably took a photo of it, probably when we were on the beach, when they were inside of our room. To this day, we have no idea who it was or what they wanted. But I always think about how quiet that door handle turned, how confidently they walked away when they realized we were awake. They weren't afraid of being caught. They weren't in a rush. They were just waiting for the right night, when someone didn't hear them. Last summer, I took a solo vacation to a small town in southern Italy called Vernazza. It was quiet, colorful, right on the coast. the kind of place people go to relax and take pictures for social media. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship and wanted some time away from everything familiar. The first few days were perfect. I'd walk along the cliffs, eat at little cafes, and browse the open-air markets near the harbor. Everyone was friendly, or at least left me alone, except for one guy. The first time I noticed him was at a market near the train station. He was wearing a gray windbreaker, dark jeans, and sunglasses. Even though it was cloudy, he looked a bit older than me, maybe late 30s, and just out of place. He was standing by a fruit stall, not buying anything, just watching people. I didn't think much of it until I saw him again later that day, and then again the next day. Different locations, but he was always nearby. At one point, I was sitting on a bench near the waterfront when he walked past me and made eye contact. He gave me a little nod, like he recognized me. That alone wouldn't have been so weird until he came back around 10 minutes later and sat on the bench next to mine. He struck up a conversation, asking where I was from and if I was traveling alone. I lied and I said I was here with friends, just waiting for them. He smiled and said something like, "That's good, this town isn't always safe at night." That stuck with me. It felt more like a warning than a comment. That night, I ate dinner at a small restaurant, tucked away off one of the quieter streets. I sat near the window. Halfway through my meal, I noticed him again. The man in the gray jacket. He was standing across the street, leaning against a wall, looking directly at the restaurant. I tried to ignore it. I finished quickly and took a different route back to my Airbnb. The streets were narrow and winding, and once it got dark, they felt like a maze. I checked behind me a few times. I didn't see him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. When I finally got back to my place, I locked the door and stayed up for a while, just watching the window. Nothing happened that night. The next morning, I debated skipping my planned hike up one of the cliff trails, but I didn't want to let fear ruin my trip. I packed water and headed out. About 10 minutes into the hike, I heard footsteps behind me. At first, I thought it was another tourist, so I turned to let them pass. It was him. I stopped walking, he smiled and said, "Small town, huh?" I didn't respond, I just stared at him. That's when he stepped a little closer and said, "You should be careful out here by yourself." That was enough. I turned and walked right back down the trail, heart pounding the entire time. I checked back a few times, he wasn't following, just staring. Later that day, I reported the incident to the local police. They took it seriously, or at least they acted like they did. I also messaged my Airbnb host and asked if they had seen anyone suspicious nearby. They replied and said they noticed a man loitering near the building a few times, but they didn't think much of it. I booked a train out the next morning. I'll never know who he was or what he wanted. Maybe he was harmless, maybe not. But the way he seemed to always be a step behind me, the way he tried to make small talk and casually mention safety, it felt rehearsed, like he'd done this before. Last summer, my girlfriend and I decided to take a trip to the Smoky Mountains. We found this cozy little rental cabin on private property that's out on the edge of the woods, about 20 minutes from the nearest town. No neighbors, no traffic, just trees, hiking trails, and silence. The property had 2 cabins, ours and another about 50 yards up the gravel path. Both were listed as rentals, but when we arrived, the second cabin was dark and looked empty. Our first 2 days were peaceful. We explored, cooked, played board games at night. There was barely any cell service, but the cabin had alright Wi-Fi. And we figured we'd check in with our families later in the week. On the 3rd night, things changed. We were on the porch having a drink around 9 p.m. when we saw the lights come on in the other cabin for the first time. A car hadn't come up the road, and we didn't hear anyone arrive. Still, we didn't think much of it. Someone probably checked in earlier while we were out hiking. But over the next hour, we noticed something strange. The lights kept turning on and off in different rooms, one after another. No music, no voices, just lights. My girlfriend joked that maybe someone was checking for ghosts. I laughed, but something about it bugged me. Later that night, while brushing my teeth, I glanced out the bathroom window and saw someone just standing outside the other cabin. Literally standing perfectly still. They weren't facing our direction, but I ducked anyway. After a minute, I peeked again. They were gone. The next morning, I woke up early and walked to the other cabin. I knocked on the door casually, hoping to meet whoever was staying there, maybe ease my nerves. No answer. I noticed the windows were still covered in plastic from renovations, but some had little holes where the film had peeled back. I cupped my hands and peered inside. The cabin was completely empty. No furniture, no bags, no food. Just bare wooden floors and a single folding chair sitting in the middle of the living room. No one was staying there. I backed away and headed straight back to our place. That night around 1 a.m., I woke up to a soft knocking, not on our door, but on the window next to our bed. We were on the ground floor, and the curtains were closed. I froze. Then came another knock. I whispered to my girlfriend to stay still, and quietly slid out the bed. I crept toward the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to peek. Someone was crouched down, staring into the window. I didn't scream, I didn't move, neither did he. He was wearing a jacket with the hood up, face partially hidden, just crouching like an animal. Then, just as slowly as he appeared, he stood up and backed away into the woods. We packed at dawn and left. I messaged the rentals once we were on the road. They apologized and claimed the other cabin was supposed to be vacant all week. They even offered a refund. Later that day, the host messaged again. They said they went to check the property that afternoon. Both cabins were empty, but the folding chair from the other cabin was now sitting on our front porch. That was all the confirmation I needed to never go back.